Hey guys, this is Tomek. In my previous video I was talking about the stateful apps in Kubernetes, so today let's deploy WordPress, which requires both MySQL backend for the database and file system endpoint for templates, config files, etc. As you can see on the screen, I will use Google Cloud SQL for my MySQL instance and PersistentVolumeClaim with Google Cloud Persistent Disk for the storage backend. So let's get started. First, I will create the SQL instance. Since this will take some time, let's start it as soon as possible. I will use MySQL version. Let's specify the instance ID and the root password. As for the connectivity, we've got some options. We can use public IP address for the SQL instance and connect either via SQL proxy or the trusted network, or use the private IP address. Since private IP address makes sense in this project and it's kind of the easiest one, let's go with that option. So under the connectivity, I will enable the private IP. Since this is done for the first time, I have to enable some APIs. This will be done in the background. And once the APIs are enabled, I will use an automatically allocated IP range by Google and click allocate and connect. This will also take some time. It might take up to a couple of minutes. And once this is done, I will disable public IP because it's not needed and continue with creation of the MySQL instance. But in the background, let's try to create also Kubernetes clusters, since this will also take a couple of minutes. So in the new window, let's navigate to Kubernetes engine, clusters, and since I don't have any running, let's create a new one, create cluster. We'll go ahead and use the my first cluster predefined settings, create now. Alright, the cluster creation should be going on in the background. It is. So let's go back to MySQL instance. In the background, the private IP is done, so let's disable the public IP. We can change some additional settings, as you can see. For example, machine type and storage, but I'm happy with the default settings, so let's click create. And the Cloud SQL instance is being provisioned for us right now as well in the background. Since both operations will take a couple of minutes, let's navigate to the Kubernetes documentation page, and I will show you how to deploy the WordPress using the Kubernetes tutorial. We will not go step by step, rather just use the deployment and save use YAML definition. So search for WordPress, and there's an example deploying WordPress with MySQL and persistent volume. You can also find it under tutorials section in the stateful applications, and let's browse through the documentation. You can find a link to this tutorial in the description of the video, but what we are going to do is only utilize the section for the WordPress deployment. So that's our file. As you can see, the first section is for the service with the load balancer type that will give us external IP address to our WordPress service. The next section is the persistent volume claim. That's for our backend storage. We'll use it default as is over here. And the last section is for the deployment. This is a little bit longer, but when you read it through, it's not very complicated. In the specification for containers, the WordPress image is used with a couple of environment values such as db host and db password. db password is written from the secret, so we will have to create the secret for that. And there's also a volume mount with WordPress persistent storage, which is mounted via claim name vp-pv claim, and that's the one we will create via persistent volume claim definition. So let's go ahead and just copy this YAML file, and that's all we need from this tutorial. Let me navigate back to the Google Cloud console, and my cluster is ready. Perfect. Let's connect to it. Run the command in the Cloud Shell. After a few seconds, the Cloud Shell should be provisioned. And once this is done, enter to accept the command. Let's check the connectivity to our cluster. I will move the Cloud Shell to the new window. It will be easier that way. And let's try with kubectl get nodes. to see if we've got our worker nodes status. All of them are ready. Perfect. Let's clear the screen, and I will open the Cloud Editor, create the file called WordPress.yaml, and paste the definition I copied from the tutorial. Alright, the file is there. Autosave is also enabled in this editor, so the file is already saved. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create a secret called MySQL password with the password key. In this way, the password will not be stored in the definition file. So let's do it right now. It's important to understand that secrets in Kubernetes can be quite easily decoded, so for your production environment it's worth to consider something a bit more secure than Kubernetes secrets. But for this demo purpose, this is perfect. So kubectl create secret, type of generic, MySQL pass, that's the name, and from literal key password with password superpass, and from literal I will also create a username WordPress underscore user. Of course, this is just for the demo purposes, so please use more complicated passwords. You can review kubectl get secret. Our secret is there. We can describe the secret to see the values. MySQL pass, we've got two values, password and username. And yeah, that's pretty much it, what we need to do. So let's go back to our YAML definition. As you notice, I also specified the WordPress DB username, and it's not in our YAML definition, so let's add it. Name is WordPress underscore DB underscore user, and it will be also read from the secret, so value from secret key ref, same as for the WordPress DB password. The name of our secret is the same, that's MySQL pass, but the key is different. The key we used was username. So that's pretty much it. That's done. Alright, so we've got our WordPress DB user. You might think how I knew what name should be used. For that, let's navigate to Docker Hub, and you can search for WordPress. The first result should be the official WordPress image, and if we scroll down we can see all the values that can be specified. So in this case we use the WordPress DB user, so we will create a separate user just for our WordPress connectivity. Alright, so that's done. The last thing we have to specify is the WordPress DB host. Right now there's a value called WordPress MySQL, but we will replace that with the internal IP address for our WordPress DB. We can find the IP address in the overview section, so let me copy that and paste that in the YAML definition for the value of WordPress DB host. Alright, so that's done. And the last thing is to actually create the MySQL user that we specified in our secret. So let's create the user. The username was WordPress underscore user, and the password was superpass. Again, I strongly encourage you to use something more complicated for your production environment. Alright, so the user is created, and well, I think we're done. I think our YAML definition is done. Our SQL database is also configured. We can go ahead and apply the changes into our Kubernetes engine cluster. So let me clear the screen. I will split the screen again as in previous videos, and on the top part of the screen let's watch the command kubectl get all, so we will be able to see how the objects are created. And in the bottom of the screen let's go with kubectl apply -f and specify our file name WordPress.yaml, and as you can see the pod is in pending state. In a couple of seconds, yes, it is in the container creating state. Our service for WordPress is also created, and the deployment is also being deployed right now. So after a minute or two everything should be ready. Alright, after around 40 seconds we already see our external IP address and the pod is in the running state. Perfect. So let me close the top screen, and in the bottom screen, let's check the external storage. So kubectl get PVC. We can see that our persistent volume claim is bound to volume with that particular name. What that is, you can actually navigate to Google Cloud Platform Console, and let's go to the Compute Engine Disks section, and we can find this exact same name for the disks being created. That's the last object. So that's our backend storage for the WordPress instance. And also in our SQL instance, when we navigate to the databases, we can see that the WordPress database was also created. So everything seems very good. Let's get the external IP address for our service with kubectl get all. I can see the external IP, and let me copy that and open in the browser. I should see the installation page for our WordPress instance, and there it is. So let's accept the default language. I will provide some information with title, username and password. Just for your information, I will destroy this instance right after this video, so do not try to hack it, right? Alright, please use more complicated passwords in your production environment. And the last step is to provide the email address and install WordPress. That shouldn't take long. Alright, once this is done, I can log into my backend, providing the same username and password, and we are in, right? So for example, we can update the WordPress to the newest available version. So let's click update now. That also shouldn't take long. And let's update the database as well. And once this is done, we've got, well, the newest available version. For the time when I recorded this video, that was version 5.4.2, and we can see our test page just on our website, WordPress site. So that's pretty much it. It wasn't that complicated, wasn't it? And alright, so let's, as I said, let's destroy that with kubectl delete -f WordPress.yaml. It will delete all the objects we've provisioned with that file. So the service, persistent volume claim, and the deployment. Since this is going in the background, let me also delete the Sql instance, since I will not use that anymore. So let's set it. Let's check it and use delete option. Just remember, once you delete this, you will also lose the data. So make sure you know what you are doing. In this case, that's just a template page, so I don't care. I can delete that. And the last thing to delete is also our Kubernetes cluster. If I refresh the disk page, I should already see that the disk provisioned for WordPress is gone. Now I only see 3 disks which are for my worker nodes. So let's navigate to the Kubernetes engine section, select my first cluster and delete that. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. The environment is cleaned up. Thanks for watching. In the description you will find a link to another tutorial of how to use a little bit different approach with Cloud SQL proxy. Also worth checking it out, and see you in the next video. If you like that, click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more. Thanks and bye.